So we have our greens, our two blues. For the next group that we're going to do, we're going to mix the reds and the blues. And what I've done is I've made trays of both the quinacridone red, which is right here, and the permanent rose. And we're going to add Windsor blue to one and Prussian to another, and the same for the permanent rose. Take a little Windsor blue, put it into the permanent rose, and we have a violet. And it's very thin, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a little bit more concentrated in the tray. But not so much water, so you can really see this color. Ooh, pretty. Alright, so there's your Windsor violet, or your combination of quinacridone red and Windsor blue. So next, we will take that same quinacridone red and we'll add our Prussian blue. See what we get here. Go a little darker. Oop, didn't mix much. Let's do it a little more concentrated. And of course the balance all changes too, depending on how much of one color you put in as opposed to the other. Let's see how close we can get these. Okay. Still a little too blue. Okay, that's about where it wants to be. So there are your colors. So now if we want to neutralize, what do we want to do when we need a neutral? So I'm going to take the permanent rose and the Windsor blue, and I'm going to add a little new gamboge to that. Put this over here. Let's see what we get. Nice violet brown, and this is plus new gamboge. What happens when we do this? Same. All right, now actually this is the Prussian blue, just so that we keep this correct here. I'm going to try adding areola into this and see what we get. A little different, but it might be the right color for your subject. So this one now is the Prussian blue plus areola. Now I'm looking at my subject and I can see that probably this areola neutral is really going to work nicely for some of my shadow colors. So I may go with the permanent rose, the Prussian blue, and the areola for some of the shadows. But since you're laying this down in layers of pure pigment, since you're going to be using these, figuring these colors out, but using just these colors to get to this layer without mixing them in the palette, you're going to get a much more interesting and a richer looking combination of colors. That doesn't mean this is the only way to work, but this is a method and it gives you a certain kind of a look. The next thing I did was I took the yellows, because I figured that I would be putting my yellows down first since I'm doing a pear. And I think you would probably do that with an apple as well, is put the yellows down first since it's the lightest color. In this case it's areolin, in this case it's new gamboge, in this case again it's areolin and new gamboge. Here I overlaid with Windsor blue second in order to achieve green. Here I used the Prussian blue. Then I painted like a section because I'm looking at my parents saying, well, it goes from blue to red. So then I put some permanent rose in the upper corner. In all cases, I let these dry and then dampened them slightly and then added the second layer of color. But you can see how really lovely the transparency looks. And even though we are working with neutrals, it tends to keep the colors separate so that when the light goes through it, you actually see each of the colors underneath. And that's the feature about mixing your color right on the page.